Good afternoon, friends. Tony Pellegrini here with our starting our third season of teaching and learning at Southern Utah University. What an exciting time that we have here today with Lynn Vartan. She is going to take a moment or two and introduce herself, and then I've got a couple of questions for her to help frame some of the exciting things that she's involved with here in teaching and learning at Southern Utah University. Lynn, would you be willing to take a few minutes or a moment or two and tell us a little about yourself?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Tony. It's a pleasure. Those who know me well know that I love talking about teaching and I love talking about learning. For those of you who may be hearing about me for the first time, I'm a music teacher here at Southern Utah University, and I teach all things drums and percussion. So drums, percussion, world music, anything you can strike and make a sound is what I do. That's now become actually part of my situation here. The other part is that I run the university lecture series, which is called Apex Events, and that's also been a new thing for the last couple of years in my teaching and participation at Southern Utah University. Outside of that, I do a lot of teaching internationally and nationally in the arena of percussion, both in music competitions and master classes, in person, online, concertizing, and such like that.
Exciting, exciting. How long have you been with us? I know you've been here at least a few years.
Yeah, this is going to be starting my 12th year.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I can't even believe it.
Time goes by like that,
It
doesn't
sure
it?
does, yeah.
It absolutely goes by like that. Well, one of the questions that I wanted to pose to you was addresses teaching, of course, and can you share with us what you feel is really unique about teaching music?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that's interesting is people always find it a little bit mystical and magical how you teach in the arts, and it is a little bit mystical and magical. It deals a lot with the individual student and the individual package. What we have is when the degrees that we offer at Southern Utah University and really at the national level are nationally accredited degrees. So there are many classes that are indoctrinated at the national level. So we have a list of courses, just like all the majors that we teach. But in music, one of the things that's particularly interesting is part of every music student's instruction each semester is individual instruction, private lessons. Just like if you have your students in private lessons as they're young people and they go take, flute lessons or piano lessons, we have that as part of our active curriculum. And so that's really one of the things that makes it really unique, because from a teaching standpoint, it's such a challenge because every student, you're essentially coming up with a very personalized curriculum because you're meeting with them one-on-one for an hour every week for their entire time at the institution. So it's an incredible opportunity. It presents challenges because everybody's a little different, but it's an incredible opportunity to craft and mentor the individual, at a very, very deep level. So that's one thing that's interesting and different. The other thing is the ensemble experience. We have, as part of our degree, many performing ensembles. So the students are playing with other people. They're assigned music, and then the job for the semester, the homework for the semester, if you will, is to prepare that music to perform in a public arena. So that's a really different experience also, because there's a lot of teamwork involved, there's a lot of refinement, but they're playing all the time. And so they're interacting with each other. From the percussion side of things, they set up, they tear down, they cooperate, all these kinds of things. But it's not the typical, here's your chapter to read and here's your exam at the end. It's a very different kind of experience in that way. So those are a few things that make it unique.
I think, too, SUU would be a wonderful place to be able to have that happen, because you really have the opportunity for these freshmen through seniors to be able to participate, as you've identified, across this wide continuum of activities, not having a master's or doctoral learners here within those areas who might pull all those opportunities to themselves, but they really get to get hands-on right
Right.
away.
Mhm. And one of the nice things is that we, of course, can do this for our majors, but non-majors, people who have a music love, but they're not really wanting to major in it, or they have other things, they can come and participate as well. And that's also a great part of the experience, because students who are music majors are interacting with majors from all areas, but yet they're speaking the language of music, and vice versa. Students in other majors are interacting with music majors, but they're all speaking the language of music together.
And what a wonderful opportunity as well to be able to influence others that are maybe not music majors but have that passion. I can certainly sense your passion for what you do, and I'm sure your learners can as well. What great opportunities!
Mhm.
Can you take a moment or two and talk to us a little bit more specifically about what teaching music really entails? Um, are there any common myths, things that people think about teaching music? Oh, it's an easy topic, or
Yeah, absolutely. That what you just said is one of the biggest myths. I think a lot of students come into the major thinking, "I love music. I played in band in high school, and I played in orchestra. I love music. I'm going to be a music major." And one of the common myths is that it is an easier degree. Actually, it's one of the more difficult degrees on campus, because in addition to all your academic coursework, academic music classes, which have homework and all these things, for your lessons, you're expected to practice a minimum, of like 2 to 4 hours a day. As an undergrad, I was practicing 8 hours a day, and that's just, such a huge commitment of time. You also have very specific individual responsibilities. If you're in an ensemble, like for percussion ensemble, for example, and you're not ready for your part, or you're not prepared for your part, there's no hiding. That part won't be played. And so, that part just won't happen. So there's a big challenge. And it's a lot to juggle. There's a lot of it. On the flip side, I think one of the advantages to that system is that it really becomes a really familial environment, very family kind of oriented, because you're sort of in the music department all the time, you're practicing all the time. And so these very, very deep collegial relationships develop right from the get-go, where the students can support each other and also give advice to each other on their musical growth. And so those are some of the things that are maybe unexpected, a spark when the light turns on. And I know so many, it's a bit of a cliche for teachers,
Mhm.
right? You see the spark, you see the light turn on, and then you just think it's the best thing. But that's it. When we are able to share something that we know, and to help somebody understand that and find their own excitement for it, seeing that light go on, I think is just, there's just nothing like it. So that's what excites me.
I can absolutely see that and engage with that. I think that's wonderful. You've been honored for your teaching style, your teaching methods. We're curious as peers. We may not be able to come in and see everything that you've got going on in class. Can you take a moment or two and share with us a little about your teaching methods and
Mhm.
approaches and styles, so that maybe we can uh, follow those?
Yeah, I love talking about this stuff. I actually do a talk about different types of learning styles, and it's something that you will run across in other research. But I believe in really highly individualized learning, and highly structured learning. So I think what people would say is that I'm a very my classroom environment is very structured, and it's structured so that everybody gets something out of it at all times, and it's a really positive structured learning environment. But in my individual interactions with the students and with the groups, I tend to really hone in on individualized learning styles, or some people might call it multiple learning styles. And I do a talk on some research that I did on visual, oral, and kinesthetic learning. And so I'm a big fan of sort of looking into those styles. There are others, and that's just one way to kind of codify learning styles. But one of the things that I get really excited about is sort of thinking about visual learning, oral learning, kinesthetic learning. And so when I go and do a talk about this, and I do it with my students each semester, I hand out a little quiz and I ask them some questions like, when you go to the beach, what's the first thing you notice? Is it the color of the sky, or the sound of the waves, or the feel of the sand in your toes? And so there's all these questions that kind of help somebody determine which learning style may be first for them. We all have bits of all of them, but we may have one that's a little stronger than the other. And so we talk about that. And then we talk about what tendencies strong visual learners, strong oral learners, strong kinesthetic learners have. And then we figure out, okay, well, how do we enhance our natural learning styles? And as teachers, how do we learn to speak or to interact in multiple learning styles? So if you're going to impart some information, let's say in a private lesson, I may write something down, and that may be great for the visual learners, but the oral learners might not connect with that. So I need to make sure that I sing a phrase to them. Or the kinesthetic learners, may be more touch oriented. So I may have them just put their fingertips on my wrist so they can feel how much tension or how little tension there is there. And so there's all these different tactics that you can use to get your point across or to get some information across. So I really love kind of geeking out on that kind of stuff. And so I think the visual oral kinesthetic learning has been something I've really been enjoying exploring over the decades now. And then making sure that your classroom is really structured is another thing. I think that some teachers, especially just getting started in the arts, but really in anything, they're so excited to get their information out that it all kind of comes out, and I think you have to be very careful. I mean, I'm a fast talker and fast mover and all that, but you have to be very careful to think about the entire audience in the room and are they getting it? So those are something.
That getting it kind of leads me to a question I'd like to pose to you, kind of going back to working with students' strengths or understanding what their strengths and not necessarily weaknesses, that's probably too strong of a word, but where there may be a little challenged. As you work with your learners, and I know it's very idiosyncratic, dependent upon each and every student, but do you like to work more with a student's strengths to improve those? And maybe that'd only be incrementally if they're particularly strong.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you like to work with maybe where they're more challenged,
Mm-hmm.
where you may be able to see a greater growth because of the investment of time and energy and instruction that you do? What are your thoughts?
So I think it's both.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
that one of the things that I see that works really well is that students, once they recognize that they're good at something or that they have a strength in something, that's just a great way to get them really excited, because that's something that really distinguishes them. Hey, you're really good at this. This is, let's maximize this, because then they feel a lot of confidence and they have a lot of comfort to take risks then, because they know they have kind of something in their back pocket that they're really good at. So I do like to definitely bring out strengths and identify them and make sure the student knows that they're strengths as well. However, I think my students would all say that I'm also very honest. I think that's a really important thing. I'm definitely not one of those that's like, everything is great all the time. My students will tell you for sure that's not the case, so that they know that when I say something is good, it's really good. But because of that, I'm very honest about what things need to be worked on. It's really important to me that we, especially in a smaller environment here, we really keep the national perspective in mind. Our students not only need to be competitive in Southern Utah or in Utah, but they need to be able to, stand up to what's going on in the rest of the United States or even abroad if they want. So it's very important to me to be very honest with students about, listen, this is something this is a part of your musicianship or whatever that you are not strong in right now. And now is the time to fix that. Do it now. Don't wait until later. And what I always am telling my students is that you have more time. We know this to be true. You have more time now than you will ever have in the rest of your life, which I know they think sounds ridiculous at first, but it's true. So take the time now to really work on those things that you maybe are afraid of, or that you feel that you want to hide from, or work on those now in the nurturing environment that we have here, so that you come out a really complete package ready for the world.
And I love that you earlier shared that you have this opportunity to teach nationally and internationally
Mhm.
because you're out there seeing what's happening today across the country, across the world, and can respond intelligently, intellectually to this is kind of where you are right now.
Right.
Learner of mine.
Mhm.
That's a wonderful, wonderful perspective. Um, just let's just our time's about up. Let's just do one last question. You've talked about students and their student learning styles, but let's focus on you for just a moment. And we have been, but talk to me. Can you talk to me about any successes you've had in teaching or in recent events?
Yeah. Well, one thing that comes to mind is I had a great time this summer. I've been very, very fortunate I've traveled to Australia the last 2 summers for two totally different events, but both music festivals where I've been the guest artist and guest teacher. This past summer, I spent a week in Perth and then a week in Sydney, working with young musicians from Australia, all parts of Australia, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and they all came and were really sort of embedded with just a few guest artists for a week, and that was absolutely just a really incredible experience, and it was just so um, engaging and so great to kind of be in the thick of it at the international level. And so I would definitely consider that, a moment that was very special. We were able to teach private lessons to the students. We were able to coach small ensembles. We gave workshops. I gave my visual oral kinesthetic workshop. I gave a talk on resilience as well, which is something that I'm thinking about a lot in our students. And then they had all kinds of downtime at meals and things to interact with us. And then we performed every night. And so it was really a very high quality event and a really high level of teaching and interaction. So I felt really honored to do that.
That is so exciting, and I think what you've got me thinking about now too is again, like you mentioned earlier, these opportunities to learn and teach and study abroad are so critical in making relationships with other professionals,
Yes.
other peers, but also in recruiting learners.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I had fun. I learned so much from Lynn that week. How can I sign up to go to SUU and learn a little bit more from you? In Cedar. I know that may not happen all the time, but
Well, in fact, it did happen. It's kind of cute. The festival was posting on Instagram, of course, all the time. And one of my incoming freshmen at SU was saying, I just feel like the luckiest person in the world because I get her for the next 4 years, which was great. And then some of the Taiwanese students were saying, oh, we wish we could go and all this. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's and for our students, it makes these relationships for them as well. I mean, they get an opportunity to connect with other professionals in my circle and other students from all over the world.
I
So,
think that's what it's all about.
yeah.
Would you take just a moment or two? Any last minute thoughts or ideas or suggestions for peers, for students to make learning and teaching at SUU wonderful? Any last
Sure.
minute
Yeah.
things that you'd like to share?
I think one of the things that's on my mind right now is um, I worry a bit about resilience in students and for all of us really. I know, we're all so busy and we're all dealing with stress and anxiety, all these things that are very real. But I would just encourage everybody who's listening to, have the conversation with your students or look for opportunities to bring up the building of resilience. And because I think that's something that I think is already right on the forefront of what we're dealing with. And I think will continue to be helping students to understand that small pitfalls, small little things in their river that get in the way of the flow are okay. You just have to find ways around it and build tools in your tool belt to become more resilient as things come at you. So that's something that's been on my mind mind I'd love to encourage everybody to sort of dig their teeth into.
That is wonderful. Lynn, thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us this afternoon. And friends, I would encourage you to reach out to Lynn. She's very open to follow up with conversations that you've heard here with her at a future point, and go and check out what's happening in her classes. Thank you, one and all, for listening, and I appreciate your time and effort. And thank you very, very much.